BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly.
Wow.
In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Today we're pleased to have as a returning guest Bobby Cenura, is a African-American literary artist born and raised in Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Cenoura writes about topics that inspire conversation and thought, something that's missing in this society of ours, and currently has one screenplay and a TV series concept under his belt. He is the author of Black Names Matter, where he discusses and analyzes the origin of black names and how they can affect those who adopt them. Today we'll be discussing, however, the process by which certain groups will take on the role of the lowest common denominator of a group to gain political benefits, even if it economically holds the group back. Doesn't that smack of something that you may have always suspected somehow, regardless of what group you're talking about? Bobby, thank you so much for returning to Liberty Talk Radio. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thanks for having me back, Joe. I really love that animated intro. And I'm always just, your energy is just, I mean, what do you eat, Joe? I mean.
Well, Sally just gave me my what do you call? What are you? You're my. Yeah, you gave me a drug. She gave me some Coke. I guess that just, there she is. She gave me some Coke. No, Coca-Cola, not Coke. Coca-Cola, Bobby.
some of that nose candy.
And next time you come to Tulsa, we'll give you some of our Coca-Cola, okay?
Okay.
Well, Bobby, you're going to have to shut me up and tell me don't talk, because I can talk on this subject for hours. I am very sensitive to nationalities. I was brought up in a very Italian neighborhood. Partly Italian neighborhood. It was really mixed neighborhood in East Harlem, New York. I'm a street kid. And, my family was very much, the Italians are this and everybody else in the world is that, so to speak. So I grew up being just resistant to that. But today I hear that, from so many ethnic groups. And of course, it's always false. It's never true. We're all the same. We dig our own ditches and then we sit in them. But I'm afraid I'm going to talk too much. So I want you to take over and tell me to shut up so you can get Okay, that's great.
Come on, Joey. Hey, Joey, man, you got to shut it up, man.
now
you guys got to shut it up, okay?
Now you sound like you come from my neighborhood. Okay, great. All right.
I'm warning you, Joey. I'm warning you.
He could have been in my doo-wop singing group. He sounds just perfect, Anyway, In fact, by the way, I have some information for you. I had the first fully integrated singing group in New York, a doo-wop singing group back in the 1950s. Freddie was a black guy, was my lead, and Carlos was the second tenor. And that wasn't my group; it was our group. No, there was no.
I thought that was. Wait, you were part of the group with the guys who sang Blue Moon?
No, I did not sing Blue Moon. We never sang that.
No, but you know the song Blue Moon?
Yeah, Blue Moon, I saw you.
Yeah, dang that song?
Yeah, I got
that was an integrated group.
Yeah, but that was even before them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I tell you, I go way back. We're talking the 50s here. Not the 50s, Anyway.
You're looking young, Joe.
Yeah. Hervey's older than I. He died a long time ago, but he won't be buried, We don't have the money to bury him yet, so we bring him to the studio and prop him up. Okay, now let's talk about it's very interesting, the process of people sort of taking charge of a group, but at the group's expense. Why don't you explain that to us?
Okay. So, well, the phenomenon that I've seen, and I spoke with someone about this recently. I have a friend who, now currently I'm in Los Angeles right now, and I'm gonna be headed back to the East Coast soon, out here visiting friends and relatives. But out in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area, you have a large Mexican population, a population of people from Mexican descent. And my friend who lives back where I live, she's originally from out here. She doesn't speak Spanish. Her mom doesn't speak Spanish. I don't even think her grandmother speaks Spanish. I think maybe her great grandmother speaks Spanish, and they came by way of Jalisco. These patterns, these immigration patterns that you see in Mexicans in that era, is they came in different waves. And on top of that, there were some people of Mexican descent already living in the United States before the United States annexed off parts of Mexico to call it Texas, Arizona, Nevada, California. I don't know if I'm missing any other ones. Oh, New Mexico.
New Mexico, right.
So what we have is we have groups of different people with different values. The people who were annexed off and the people who came earlier, who worked to become integrated into the American society, very much had the idea of becoming American, in the sense that, okay, we all have a common, we all speak English, we all have a common culture, we all bring different things to the table,
Right.
but we have a general consensus of a common culture. But what we have now is we have a lot of, I would say, a lot of the millennials, people who haven't been through the trials and the tribulations of the earlier generations, using the Mexican immigrants, using their struggles and using their challenges, and sitting on that platform as if they were them. So this affects by this is affected by like the scenario of like when Trump will talk about immigration, or or let's just say let's not even use Trump's name. Let's just say you and I were talking about immigration, okay? Now you, as an Italian American or ancestors from Italy, right? You knew that initially when the Italians came to New York or in the United States, they had their challenges, but they fought and they integrated themselves. And I came up in the economics and the finance background, so I'm familiar with a lot of Italian names like Modigliani and what's the other famous guy, Miller Modigliani. They did a lot of work. Capital that was the firm value theory. But there's a lot of great Italians in history, and the Italian Americans, when you think of them, they don't usually speak Italian. They're American, but they have Italian ancestry or Italian blood. And they don't, for the most part, they don't sit on the platform of Italians from Italy. And I recently went to Italy, and I spoke with Italians there, and their view of Italian Americans in America. And they said those guys are very much American. I like to say Guidos, because, just like we'll say amigos, but I like to say Guidos because that speaks to someone of Italian blood and ancestry, but that's an American person through and through. So why do we have this? These different platforms. So there's a lot of Mexicans, people of Mexican descent that did vote for Trump, and they were able to see through the rhetoric of immigration, not as something that's racial, but something that is something that our country has to consider, because other countries have borders. Other countries have. Now, me personally, I'm all about free trade. I'm all about people moving back and forth as the economies. But the economies, there has to be some reciprocity, and I think this is why Britain wanted to exit the European Union. But not to get too far off on a tangent. So one day she told me that my friend that's Mexican American, one day she told me when I was making a statement about this phenomenon, she was saying, oh, I'm going to pull your brown card. Meaning that, I'm going to pull your brown card, meaning that, you were cool with the Latinos and now you're not. Well, I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. Since when did you become a Latina? I mean, the last time first of all, you don't practice Catholicism. You don't speak a Latin language. So essentially all you are is a person with Native American and European blood that looks tan, and you live in the United States. You have some of the food and things like that, but I mean, what really makes you a Latino? So there were some people that there were a couple of people that were Mexican descent. They called themselves Chicanos, and they were saying that Chicanos are not Latinos. They were saying that Chicanos are Americans with of Mexican descent or Mexican ancestry. So then we start to get into people calling everybody racist. People using the term racist and racism very, very loosely without really defining what racism is in the context. So if someone says that they want to keep their borders safe, that's not a racist statement. Now, if I don't like someone because they're from another country, that's more of a xenophobic statement. That's a xenophobic statement. If I'm proud of my own country, that's like a nationalistic type of view. If I don't like someone because of their skin color, then that's when it becomes racism. You see? So I think what they're doing is they're conflating the idea of nationality and race. And even in Mexico, there are different colors of people. There is no one way to be a Mexican. I mean, if you've seen Canelo Alvarez boxing, he's like a ginger. I mean, how many Mexicans do you know look like gingers? You know what I mean? He'd be better suited for St. Patrick's Day than Cinco de Mayo. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then I've seen Mexicans dark as or darker than me. So the thing about race and nationality and things, people are able to conflate these different things. And when it suits them, they can borrow from that to benefit from that. In my own community, I know that there will be some African Americans that will jump on, or I'll just say black, people that will jump on a certain bandwagon, but that doesn't really fit their lifestyle. Doesn't really fit the way they live their life. What are your thoughts on that?
I want to take the example of maybe Europe. We can take Italy, for example. If you go to the Alps in Italy, you'll find that many of the people there have blonde hair and blue eyes. If you go to the southern islands of Italy, like Sicily, you'll find that people have curly, dark hair, and darker skin. Well, so when people say you're Italian, that's a misnomer, because through the millennia, people from Northern Africa, which are very, very much different than the people from Central, Sub-Saharan Africa, integrated with those people who lived in the islands, of the Mediterranean. Now, some of those islands became part and parcel of other European countries, whether it be France, Germany, Italy, or Serbia, or whatever. And the same thing happened to the northern tier of Italy, where people in the Alps were, if you go to the Italian Alps, you'd think you would. Switzerland, they look more like Swiss than they do Italians. So whenever we talk about a nationality, we really don't know what we're talking about. You take the Hungarian Empire at one time, now Hungary is a small country. At one time, it took over most of Eastern Europe. Well, at one time, if you lived in Hungary, you were Hungarian. Well, now you may not be Hungarian, you may be Polish. So, we use these terms interchangeably, and we identify people based on geographic area without considering the migration of people, which leads me to the conclusion that borders mean nothing. Only thing borders mean, have meaningfulness to, are governments themselves. And I think all governments are invalid. All invalid. In the 1930s, Mexicans came here to work. And during the Depression, they stopped coming here for work because there was no work. And so we didn't have to build a fence, but once we built the fence and people came here, it didn't keep the Mexicans out. It kept those that wanted to go back to their families after their work was over, prevented them from returning to their homeland and their families, because if they got caught, they would be put in jail. It was a lot easier getting in than it was getting out. So most of when we talk about immigration and we talk about nationality is convoluted with so much misinformation or lack of understanding that it's very, very difficult to have a conversation. When I had my singing group, my multi-nationality singing group, we sang at my father's birthday party in our apartment in Harlem. My father threw me out of the house, wouldn't let me back in again. I thought he'd be pleased, but he couldn't believe that I had a black guy and a Puerto Rican, all these other nationalities. They all had to be Italian, you know.
You're like UN.
Really, I mean, I was thrown out. But I'm just saying that we live with this, and sometimes we adopt these prejudices and somehow justify them. I don't think there is any definition at all, by any definition, by any logic, of there being a border. I don't understand borders. If I was standing at a particular parallel and I moved 1 foot over, I'm in another country. So what? Provided I know in this country, you know, the sales tax is 3% and I pay it when I buy something, and the sales tax in this country is 5% and I pay it when I buy something. What difference does it make where I stand and what my papers say? It's absolutely immaterial. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. This is your show.
No, Joe. I like this. I like this energy. You know, you gotta keep bringing it, Joe. Bring it. You know, we're in church. We're in church. Shout, brother Joe. Shout.
But
shout, baby.
But there is no such thing as nationality. I mean, I know a gal that I knew from when I lived in the Bronx. You know, she was a friend of a friend. And she was Greek. I mean, this girl made you look like a blonde. I mean, you know, we judge by color of skin, by accent, where you come from, and all this other stuff, and it's all absolutely meaningless. And the only thing, in my opinion, is that governments love this because this gives them something to run on and a way to get votes and to subjugate the people. And without them, we would be at a total loss. We don't need them. We need each other.
Well, you know, I mean, Joe, that's interesting because you know, you talked about and I saw like many different people in Italy when I was there, and you also talked about the different migrational patterns. You talked about how the North Africans, you know, immigrated into different islands in the Mediterranean. There was also, before the North Africans did that, there was also an Arab-African slave trade, and there was a lot of sub-Saharan African and Arab intermingling that was going on in Northern Africa. So in different waves and in different generations, those different people, like all you need to do is take a DNA test to see what it will be. But you can't really explain that to your dad because it's just like when you have street gangs and prison gangs. Like if you have gangs on the street, you know, they might be rivals with each other. But then when they go to prison, they might align with each other under a common umbrella for some reason, usually skin color, right? So your dad, you know, your dad being you know, might have like your dad in America might feel one way about black people. But let's say he was in Italy and now they have like a lot of like African population and people there. But let's say if he was in Italy and there was a darker skinned Italian that looked black, he might have a different opinion because he's in a different patriarchy. He's in a different it's a different scenario. It's a different own group scenario. And I talk about own group preferences to people because humans are tribal by nature. Humans have for many millennia been hunter-gatherers, nomadic, tribal, and what was familiar to them was if you look like me, I know that you're in my tribe and you're less likely to be an enemy. So I think that, before, when we talk about the concept of governments, we have to think about the family unit and then how the family unit and then neighborhoods and then communities grow into cities and then cities into counties and then counties into states, things like that, because I think this is where governments got their start. And I think there's a medium whereby, in order to have free trade, there needs to be an enforcement arm to it would be good if everybody did what they were supposed to do. If everybody didn't steal or didn't kill or didn't do things that they were, and we could all move back and forth freely, I think that would be awesome. But the problem is that there's an incentive for stronger people to take advantage of weaker people.
Right.
And yes, I would like to get weak people strong. I mean, that's the key, right? But then on the other note, human beings in evolution have always vied for position. They've always vied for position. I mean, I can even bring up there was a time, I forget if it was in the 90s or in the 80s, when they cornered the silver market, and there were people who were big players in silver, and it got out of hand, and they were able to manipulate the market because silver was so cheap, and a few big players manipulated the market. At a certain point, when we're talking about free trade, that's not really free in that sense. And conceptually it is, because they have the capital and therefore they can purchase silver. So maybe you just don't want to mess with that market. Maybe you want to do something else. Maybe you want to innovate on something else. And I can see that. But I can also see that in order for a middle class to even exist, there needs to be an incentive for them to produce. And if there's no incentive from them to produce, if they're afraid of, like George Carlin said, that the middle class are scared as shit of poor people.
Right.
Because they're, what I'm saying, right?
Right.
They want, right? Yeah. They want to be rich, so they reach up that way because they want to go up that way, but they don't want to fall down that way. But the poor people are more like the super rich in the sense that they don't pay a lot of taxes, so they would have more in common in that regard. So I'm definitely for a definitely limited government, but I definitely believe that there needs to be enforcement. There needs to be a military to kind of to protect the free trade and so on and so forth.
Well, see, let me take some of these things that you said, but there's always this perception. Government loves to label so they can divide and conquer. Let me give you an example. This is an analogy. This is an example of how government works. My wife and I are walking down the street. There's a beautiful blonde walking towards us. I mean, absolutely drop dead gorgeous. So I turn to my wife, goes, I'm a good husband. I always ask permission of my wife. I say, honey, could I date her, please? Just a couple of times, all right? And she says, no, dear, just shut up and keep walking. And I get angry. I go, you never make me do anything, right? Now, and that's the end of the conversation. Then we're walking, and there's a drop-dead gorgeous black girl, right? Drop-dead gorgeous black girl. And I go, honey, could I date her? She says, no, honey, just keep on walking. I say, see, you're prejudiced. You see what I mean?
Oh.
I mean, my point being is that we use our language to define what the problem is. The problem is I want to cheat on my wife. It has nothing to do with race, but we made it a racial issue. Now, obviously, I don't do that because if I'm going to cheat on my wife, I probably wouldn't tell her. I haven't cheated on her, but I probably would not send her a letter in advance. Say, by the way, Friday night at 8 o'clock, I'll be cheating on you. I don't do things like that. I'm not that stupid.
It's not cheating. It's not cheating if you're open and honest. Cheating means you're cheating, like cheating on a game. Yeah. If you go to her like, oh, can I do this? And she's like, yeah, and you do it, you didn't cheat because you were right there.
But you get my point of that story.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
get your point.
And we do so much of that. And let me give you a blanket statement, and unfortunately I can support it, and it's very sad. If you want to see why we have so many problems in this world, blame the government. Always blame the government, because you and I can have a disagreement, but we can work it out. Once the government gets involved, we enact laws or restrictions, and forever that remains a problem, and people get into office trying to solve that problem, but they keep the problem going because that's the way they stay in office. You and I can work out any problem in this world. The government could only exacerbate it. If you want to see why we have problems with Mexico today, blame the government. You know, one reason, drugs, right? They say, well, look at the drugs that are coming in. Well, legalize drugs. I mean, that's all. If you don't want to take drugs, don't take them. If you want to take them, take them. Go girl, go. Go guy, go. I don't care. But once you do that, you starve the cartels in Mexico, and the Mexican people can take their towns back from these multi-trillion-dollar cartels that are running things now and literally killing the politicians to keep total control. You want to go back to the core problem, blame the government.
So, Joe, let me ask you a question, because, we talked a little bit about, before we got on the air, we talked a little bit about the demographic winter in Japan. We talked a little bit about what's going on in society with men and women. But I want to know, because I'm a fan of The Walking Dead, and I watch a lot of prepper stuff online.
That's a metaphor, you know that. That's the Walking Dead's a metaphor. We have the Walking Dead. The Walking Dead are around us all the time. You know what they're doing? They're not walking around with blood coming out of their mouths. They're watching television all day. But go ahead. Right, Sally? Right.
But Joe, what I'm saying is that let's say you and I had a problem, and you said we could work it out, right? But let's say I don't want to work it out. Let's say I want to take what's yours. Okay? If you don't have the family or the manpower or the firepower to stop me, then I'm going to end up taking what's yours. So what I'm saying is that, like, when things in its rawest form, like let's say we're talking anarchy, in its rawest form, I mean, this could actually be a way of making the human race stronger, because the weak would get, weeded out and the strong would survive. But you would have much fewer people. You'd have a less bustling economy, because people wouldn't have the incentive to produce, because they're not vested in tomorrow, because anything can be taken from them today. And so in the sense that we have a type of law enforcement, whether it be, even if it was a group of people that get together and say, okay, these are the rules. I mean, you see it in any post-apocalyptic scenario. There's a bunch of people that, at first they're going to war, they're going nuts, but then they're like, okay, listen, at a certain point we need to decide these are the rules. These are certain things that happen. And you can look at any successful gang in history or anything, that even the mafia, you could look at them and say, you know what, at a certain point in time they had like a golden age where it's like, okay, they kept crime down in their neighborhoods. Like, a lot of people know, the mafia kept crime down in the Italian neighborhoods, because they were saying, look, this can be permissible, this cannot be permissible. If you want to come up against me, try me. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't do it, then you're out of luck, and you're gone. But the strong will stay. But they enforce. So in a sense, the mafia would be like a government or a law enforcement arm. It wouldn't be called the government, but in a sense, they would kind of like quote unquote tax. It wouldn't be called taxes, but they'd be like, hey, Saul, you get those hot pies for me yet? You know what I'm saying? You walk by, he bites an apple, he keeps going. He's like, hey, I'll make sure your store stays safe. Well,
no,
right?
let me explain. I want to interrupt you only because I want to clarify something. I'm not for anarchy. There's nothing wrong with having a local government and for people to bring their grievances to local government and whatever, but there has to be very local. People have to, appreciate the fact that these people are just one of the community, and they're just the coordinators of things. I'm not for anti-government where you have no police force. You should have a police force. Should be local. Shouldn't be armed.
Right.
You know, we shouldn't have tanks in the street. I mean, it's unnecessary. Right. And neither should we have bases anywhere other than in mainland United States. Military bases, that is. There we should have no soldiers anywhere, and we won't have to worry about women and stupid subjects like women in the military. Well, you know what? It's something. If everyone stayed home, like my mother would say, and minded their own business, the world would be a better place. We should stay home, mind our own business. The world would be a better place. Now, if we free traded with everyone, we didn't bother anybody, we didn't force anyone to do anything, place tariffs on people, unjustifiably, and someone did attack us, guess what? Every man, woman, and child that can carry a pea shooter would be in the Army. In other words, we're all in the Army by virtue of the fact that we're here.
Now let's hold, Joe, so hold that thought. Because to me, the only difference between law enforcement and military is whether it's domestic or foreign.
Absolutely, right.
So,
you're right.
So what I'm saying to you is that, okay, so let's say we have these local governments, because I actually talked to my friend. He's in the uniformed services, and I told him, if there was an invasion, I would love to be a part of law enforcement. I would love to be a part of a local law enforcement, but as far as going to invade others, I wouldn't want to be a part of that. Right. But what I'm saying is that you can't, if you have local governments that, in order to get a concerted effort, like if someone from the outside comes in, if you don't have borders, right, then there's no really, they're not really from the outside. You get what I'm saying? They're just
You're right,
others,
but they can come in here, but are they coming here with weapons firing, or are they just coming here to work? I would love to hire someone, but the government won't let me hire them because I have all these restrictions and I can't afford it.
Right, and that's different. I'm talking about the security and law enforcement piece. Not about the free trade piece. I mean, they botched that. I'm talking about there is no here if there's no border. There's no demarcation. There's no, even in the concept, like let's say, for example, we live in Nevada, and then there was, and let's say Japan attacked California, right? Technically, we don't belong in the same area, right? But we know that if they attack California, they can easily come east and attack Nevada.
Oh yeah, but we have a National Guard. We have a National Guard. We also have a standing army. We have surveillance. We have rockets. We have planes, and the whole bit. That would happen if we did something wrong to another country, or another country wanted to take advantage of us. However, look at Switzerland during World War II. Hitler just invaded every country except for one. What was that country? Switzerland. Why? Because he wasn't stupid. He said, everyone in Switzerland, every man, woman, and child in Switzerland owns a gun. We put out tanks through Switzerland. We eventually have to leave those tanks to go to the bathroom. And when we do, we'll get a bullet in our heads. Not a good place to go. And that was a deterrent. The fact that the people were free to defend themselves, and they didn't have this massive standing army, actually deterred the strongest army in the world. And yet, other countries that had very large standing armies but did not permit their population to defend themselves lost millions of people and lost their country.
That's interesting.
To me, it's simple.
That's very interesting.
Look at the map behind me.
I believe everybody. In these small countries, even in Israel, everyone needs to do some type of military training. In a smaller country, people are more vigilant in a smaller country.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be militaristic at all. If everyone owned a gun, and let's assume no one went for training, they just went to the, to their gun club and shot off a few rounds every once in a while, and let's assume 250 million people, were armed. and they're spread over this large area, one of the largest countries in the world. Canada's a little larger in area, and Russia's a little larger in area. I think we're the third or fourth largest country in the world, and you wanted to take over this country, you got to be nuts. You got to get out of the tank.
Oh, yeah.
You got to land the airplane. And when you do, you're toast. But should be no reason. The only reason why we have problems with other countries is because we interfere with those countries. No country wants to interfere with us that we don't interfere with in the first place. They want to trade with us. But again, the government gets involved and puts up tariffs and all this other and restrictions and you name it, they do it. But I want to make sure we don't get too far away from our original.
But Joe, I just want to say something real quick about that before we go, because I think that's very. I think you can see those same statistics where in states where there's gun ownership, like Texas, there's lower gun violence versus in states where or jurisdictions where they're not allowed to have guns. There's more violent crime in the inner cities. So the gun problem is not really a problem of rednecks carrying like shotguns. The problem is actually in the inner city where you have these inner city violent crimes and things like that with people who illegally have guns.
Right. Well,
so the legal citizens aren't allowed to have them, but the criminals sure do have them.
Right. Well, the lowest crime rate per person in the United States is in Plano, Texas. It is also interesting. I'm pretty sure it's Plano, and if it's not Plano, it's one of the town near Plano. But I think it's Plano, Texas. The lowest rate of killing via guns is in Plano, Texas, in the United States. Isn't that amazing? The place that has the most number of guns per family has the lowest rate of killing with guns. I mean, what else do you need? And if you look at it proportionally, you'll find the same. Any place where it's restricted, who has the guns? The drug dealers, and they go around doing what they want to do, and everyone else frightened to hell, Now, I'm not a gun nut. I never have more than 72 guns in my house at the same time. I'll be honest with you, So I'm not a gun nut. But I'm just saying that you should be able to feel that if you want to own a gun to protect your family, you should own. In fact, you should be not mere obligated to own it. You should be smart enough to own it. What I want to do is I don't want to get away from our theme of the thing. You said that how people of the lowest common denominator take control over groups, and they're the worst of the group, and they wind up controlling the group. Could you explain that to me?
It's like the media likes to have the general. The liberal media likes to have, like you said, negativity to promote. So, like you said, anything can be a racial issue. But the interesting thing was there was a lady named, I think her name was Burrell or something. I don't know. She's I think she's like a pastor or a singer, and she made some comment about gays. And I think Ellen DeGeneres got bent over it. There was some kind of conflict there. But I said eventually this would happen. Eventually, and this is a phenomenon I call, and I don't know if anybody else dubbed it, but I call it liberal cannibalism. When there's too many platforms of too many people saying, I'm the oppressed one. No, you're not oppressed. I'm oppressed. So who's more oppressed? At the top of this oppressed type of hierarchy should be the lesbian, transgendered, disabled, black female. And then at the bottom of this would be the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was recently, and so what the MTV recently had this one thing where they were like saying, in 2017, white guys, this is what you should be doing. No, America wasn't the one. She looks to be Hispanic. Gets on there. She says America was only great if you were a white guy or something like that. And I was just listening at the way that they were talking about white dudes, and I was like, if someone talked about you like that, you'd be saying that they were racist.
Yeah, right.
If somebody talked about you like that, you were saying it's racist. You can go around and say, and you can't even look at the example that Mandela, I think it was Mandela, the example he gave that when he came out of lockup and he went back to work, he didn't kick out all the white South Africans out for their posts. They were getting ready to leave. Morgan Freeman was in that movie. They were getting ready to leave. He was like, "No, what are you leaving for? If you want equality, then you got to be equal with people. You can't just take it when it benefits you." And this is what I talk to people a lot about. You want to take things when it benefits you. A lot of radical feminists do this. They want to be equal to men when it benefits them, but when it doesn't, they're not going to stand up and say, "Oh, ladies' night, free drinks. I'm not going to drink it. Why? That's sexist. Men should get free drinks too." When was the last time you heard someone say that? I'm not coming in here because men don't get free drinks. I'm a feminist and I'm standing up for it. No, they don't say that. I'm a feminist. I'm standing up because men get drafted and we want to be drafted too. No, they don't say that, right? Right. I'm a feminist. I want to get child support and men should be able to get child support and alimony just like me. No. You don't. I mean, there's a select few that might say, you know what? Yeah, we need to do that. Oh, here's a good one. If a man should be able to hit me back when I hit him. No. They'll say when a man hits a woman, they'll say, you know, there's cases like this chick's hitting this guy hits her back, and then they're like, violence against women. Wait a minute, hold up. Wait, hold up. Violence against women. She was teeing off on the guy. You know what I mean? The guy hits her back, and see, it's not the magnitude. It's the act itself. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of I do a lot of research. There's domestic violence. Men are less likely to report it. They're victims of it, but what they do is they get laughed at by cops if they're. You know, they did these studies where, you know, a woman's beating up on a man outside and everybody's laughing. Listen, I get it. You see, me, I'm old school. I know men have more muscle mass and we can do a lot more damage to women on average.
Right.
So that means women, you should respect that and carry yourselves like that. But if you're going around saying, oh, gender is a social construct. Oh, men aren't really stronger. It's just that they were taught that they were stronger. Oh, really? So, but then when someone hits you, then you want to cry and say it's violence against women. That does, you know, that's exactly what I'm saying. You know
absolutely
what I mean?
right. The words we use, the language we use, defines the problem, and that's never the problem. I got a note here. Hold on. I have a note here from Sally. It says, she said, I dated a guy who abused my girlfriend. Well, what is that supposed to mean?
His girlfriend.
What? Oh, it was his girlfriend. I dated a guy who abused his girlfriend.
No, who was abused by
he was abused by his girlfriend. I'm sorry, I can't read. See, now you learn I can't read either. Okay, so he was well.
Yeah, they don't report it.
They don't report it at all. Okay.
Yeah, he's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
It's not brought up.
There she is. There's Sally. Enough of that.
So,
you had your 2 seconds of fame, Sally.
You can't hear me.
No, Sally's famous. Sally's famous. She'll be like the young gun. She's going to make you famous. Like Emilio Estevez.
Well, let me ask you this, Bobby. What's the solution to this problem where we have people, and this is not peculiar just to the black community, but to every group, where you find some person in that group that exploits everyone else, you know, and then they become the leader, and they're the least qualified person to become the leader. And basically that's what you're saying here. You're saying that the person at the with the lowest common denominator of that group gains political control of that group. What's the answer to that?
Yeah, Joe. Oh, Joe. So you know what? And maybe it kind of skirted that. But a couple of really quick things about that would be someone who, when they were talking about like the crack epidemic and how they were talking about how crack, they were saying, you know, cocaine and crack, they come from the same thing, but you know, you get more time if it's crack. And they're like, yeah, you know, the law is being made because they want to lock up black people because black people are the ones that sell crack. Well, what they don't say that. See, so there you go. So you're saying the lowest common denominator, the laws about crack is racist, and the laws because cocaine and crack have different times to them. Now, I'm not going to deny that there is bias in the justice system, but what I will say is that a lot of these politicians and people have to step over these crack addicts and these drug dealers on their way to work, and they go in and they lobby for more government, and they lobby for more laws, and they lobby for more cops, right? And then what happens is they get that. So then what they do is they create harsher laws on that. But they're like, wait a minute, we wanted this, but we didn't want this. Oh, we didn't want this much government. We didn't want this much police activity, right? I mean, people online complaining about police officers doing their jobs are the same people that want more police in their neighborhoods, right? So this lowest common denominator factor, the hard-working person that has to get around, these street elements, their voices aren't being heard. The voices you hear are, oh, look, like you hear about these cases where, and I'm going to just use the black community for example. You hear about the cases where there's a guy shot by police, and before the facts even come out, people are already saying and protesting and doing different things. All the facts aren't out, but you're hearing from the loudest mouth political people who can use that platform to their gain. Because if there's peace, there's no more politicians.
That's right. Yeah.
If people, if people can resolve their issues, there's no more room for the politician. So the solution now the problem with this, the problem is this: the family structure is messed up. The family structure is not what it used to be. And if you're going to solve a problem on a grand scale, you got to start with the family. What's going on there? And that's the solution, is to get the family back, get the family structure back intact. And then from that, everything else will just take care of itself.
Let me give you my opinion of that. I agree with you wholeheartedly. One of a major force that is the breakup of the family, and I don't care what nationality you are, where you come from, or what your background is because the government has walked in and taken the place of the family. The number one reason why we had the start of the breakup of the family was the introduction of Social Security, because grandma and granddaddy were no longer connected with their family because they had Social Security, they went out on their own. And then you can say that with the welfare programs and the food programs and all this other stuff. And now, as a result, you have people having children, and they say, well, it's no problem because if I have more children, I make more money. In fact, if it's been well documented that if a woman had 3 children, a single woman had 3 children.
Report.
Yeah. And she would have to make over $65,000 a year on a job to break even. Well, that's never going to happen unless she's has a high-powered job, and very few of them do. So you say, well, what's causing the problem? Well, it's the government. If you look at the inner cities, many of the, whether it be black or white, but many of black people proportionally are black or Hispanic, and they're in the community. They have these black gangs and Puerto Rican gangs and Mexican gangs and whatever. And how do they survive? They survive because they make a fortune on drugs. Now, how do you solve that problem? More cops? No. You legalize drugs just like you legalize aspirin, and all of a sudden, a bottle of crack costs you as much as a bottle of aspirins. There's no money in it. There's no incentive. You have no more gang. They have to say, hey, Bob, Bobby, you and I got to get a real job. I can't sell crack for 30 cents. It's costing me 34 cents to buy. I can't sell, what am I going to do? They can go the next. So you and I now have to find jobs, which I hate to do because I hate to work, But we find out we have to have jobs. And then if a woman finds out if she gets pregnant, she's on her own. She may starve and her child may starve. She may be a little reluctant to go out with a slime ball, I'm just saying that we have the worst sin in the world, and it's never talked about, is enabling. When you enable someone, you destroy them. You destroy the very spirit of their life. And the government is the biggest enabler in the world. And our government is one of the worst enablers in the world. And that's why we have these problems, and that's the root of our problems. Other than that, I have no opinion.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely hear you about, the groupthink. That it's tough, Joe. That's tough.
Well, Malcolm X, and when he brought almost like the black community together, almost in a semi-militaristic way. People who were heretofore just loose cannons all of a sudden became very, very obedient and structured individuals within that Muslim community. Was it Malcolm X with the Muslim community, or am I thinking of someone else? I'm mixing it up. Anyway,
No, it could be Malcolm. There's
it could have been
Malcolm X or any
okay.
other like people.
And I
like that,
apologize if I have the wrong names, but people had a sense of purpose. No one was enabling them. They had to do that, and for that reason, I applaud what they have done. But
Right.
we don't do that. We say, look how terrible, because they're different than we are. They don't like us. Well, what do you expect? Look at the structure that we have live under. It's not
Right.
worth living under that structure.
Right, right, right. Well, but with that example, I would say that Malcolm X and like or the like Black Panthers or whatever it may be would actually be a form of governance, but it's not a form of wealth redistribution in governance.
Right.
So I think the structure, the military and the law enforcement type of structure will always be needed. I just think that the redistribution of wealth is what is the issue that we're talking about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
because they wouldn't have structure if they didn't feel like they were under attack.
Right.
If everything was hunky dory and da 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 da, they wouldn't feel like they were under attack. Therefore, they wouldn't think they need to suit up, and then they wouldn't do those other things. That's one thing in protecting your neighborhood or community, but it's a different thing when you say, oh, so and so is making X amount per hour, which is, let's say so and so is making $50 an hour. This person over here is making $25 an hour, right? So we need to even the playing field. We need to take $12.50 from the guy who's making $50 and give it to the guy who's making 25, or something to that regard. You
Right.
get what I'm saying?
Yes.
To even things out. The redistribution is I think is the pivotal issue, in my opinion, which is that one where a person can have multiple kids. And then if people talk about sterilization programs, oh, they're wrong. It's like you can't have up without down. You can't have right without left.
Right. Well, what you're saying is that by giving from one to another, to each according to their needs, from each according to their ability. That's what you're saying. That's how we
Right.
starved. The settlers starved when they came here. When they gave up that stupidity, they flourished. And what you are, in fact, doing when you give to those in need and from those, force those people, who do have the resources, you are enabling them. You're forcing someone to enable another person. That is the worst sin. There's no sin in the world worse than that. In fact, I would say even it bypasses murder, because it kills someone from the inside out, and it makes them suffer for the rest of their lives. At least if one guy kills another, it's over. The guy's life is over. This person is going to suffer before they die, because their life is not going to be worth living.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely you need to have that motivation. You need to have that drive.
Yeah, I mean,
That
it's
drive,
horrible. I see this
yes.
all the time. I go, what do you enable everybody for? Everyone who has a problem has an enabling problem. Every problem is an enabling problem. And I'll give you an example. Many, many, many years ago, I told my son, don't go to California. Don't go to California. You want to be a musician. Don't go to California. He went. He called me one time, and he said, Dad, he said he lived in Hollywood, drug-infested neighborhood with other musicians all sleeping on the floor. It was disgusting, School cost him a fortune, didn't give him a dime, by the way. And he called me, he said, look, I said, my motorcycle died. He had an Enduro, Honda Enduro 250 that died on Hollywood Boulevard. He actually left it there, got stolen, came back to his apartment. The landlord's waiting, says, give me the rent, or you're not going to get back in. He called me, says, Dad, can you wire me $20? Now, I lied to him. I said, hey, Paul, I clear $1,000 a day. I was near broke at the time, by the way, but I did not tell him that. I said, I clear $1,000 a day. you want to borrow $20 from me. Where do you think this money's going to come from? And I hung up. I didn't want to enable him. I would have killed him if I would have killed him if I did that. And guess what? Today he's a well-respected musician, and he runs my occupational health testing company. And don't tell him I told you this, but he does a hell of a better job than I do in every respect. I did not enable him. And I think this is what we need. Remember the old thing, tough love? We need tough love. And our government should just dissipate, go away, and leave us alone, and just be there to get the mood of the people to see what needs to be done.
I can feel you on that, Joe. I can feel you, definitely.
And you have no idea how strong I talk about this all the time. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, I think that one issue that we're really having right now, when I talked about the dissolution of the family and the dissolution of relationships between men and women, I was reading this book, and I write books, but there's a book out here that I was reading, and I wanted to put this local author up. It's called The Broke Brothers' Revolution by J. Sean Durham. I'm getting through this book, supported this guy, and I just wanted to mention that his book has a few tales from the Black perspective, but this thing is happening all over. You and we talked about the herbivore men in Japan. We talked about, and I was telling you a little bit about guys checking out of a society. I told you a little bit about guys, they don't feel like they have the incentive anymore to produce. And I think a lot of this comes from, biologically speaking, like, people live together, they met people face to face. And now with the advent of new technology, we have a less, like a hands-off type of culture now. And we have, people going online and they're looking and seeing who they can find. And a woman can see all of her options within a 50 or 60 mile radius. And there's it's all online. And so the average guy is kind of like I have female friends, and they tell me, my inbox, I have thousands of emails from their dating websites. And what they're doing is they're sifting through and filtering. They're filtering and they're sifting and they're filtering. But what they don't realize is that about 80% of the women are dating 20% of the guys. So it's usually these quote unquote, I
want to get on that list.
Yeah. See,
oh,
exactly.
That's great.
Because when we're talking about enabling, what's happening is, society has, and society has put like women's issues on a pedestal, but to the degree that the average, like no matter what they do, they say, you go, girl. You can't do no wrong. You go, girl. Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and devour this cheesecake. You go, girl. You're beautiful. You can do anything you want. You're beautiful, okay? But when it comes down to, a man should love you for who you are. And inside and out, anything you do, he should love you for who you are. But if a guy does something, he's a dog. It's like, if you see these talk shows, I mean, they laugh about guys getting their members chopped off and put in a garbage disposal. They're on the View or whatever talk shows. I forget one with Osborne was like laughing about some sick lady who chopped her husband's member off because he wanted to get a divorce and throw it down in the drain and in the garbage disposal. And they were on there like, but let a man talk about cutting off a woman's breast.
Yeah.
You're a sexist, misogynistic, blah blah blah.
That's right. We it's idiocracy. The whole thing is idiocracy. But I need to we're going to need to close out soon. But we have so many black people. We have public schools that we spend an inordinate amount of money on, and yet in major cities, and Tulsa's a major city, although it's just a big town, but even cities the size of Tulsa have a average graduation rate of 51%. In other words, 49% of the kids never graduate high school. In the inner cities like Chicago and in the South Bronx and in Los Angeles and and places like that, in Detroit, I mean, it's minuscule the number that actually finish school, and those that do finish school are given a degree because if they left them back, there would be consequences. So they get a degree, but they still can't speak, read, or write. And so how do we solve this problem? We're enabling them, so they come out, they can't find a job because they go for an interview, no one in their right minds would hire them. I don't care what color they are. It makes no difference, But unfortunately, most of this rests on the black community, unfortunately. And yet they can't find jobs. And then if they do find a job where they really want to work there and they want to prove to this person that they are the hardest worker in the world, they can't get hired because they may be under $15 an hour minimum wage, and no one's going to spend 3 or 4 weeks training a person while paying $15 an hour plus all the other things, which comes out to $21 an hour, by the way, when you add everything else. If you're an employer, you realize that $15 an hour is $21 an hour. And you think about it, you go, and what if this person doesn't work out? You take somebody else off the line to teach them whatever. You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, and this person may not work out. So you walk out of that situation, and the person remains unemployed. So I'm just saying that when will the community, I don't care black or otherwise, realize that when you are poor, living in this structure, that you need to break away from this enabling structure and need to break out on your own? When is that going to happen, especially in the black community?
Well, I would always say that the black community, or what we call the black amalgam, because they're like 5 different. Well, according to one guy that he's been doing research, they're like about 5 different types of. There are 5 different black Americas, but the most popular, prevalent one, or not popular, but the most prevalent one, is the one where it's poor and gangster and drugs infested.
And these are the ones I'm addressing. Yeah.
Like Dave Chappelle said, a little Tyler walking in the street at 3 a.m, stuff like that. That's the projected image. That's the one that we saw. This image is a microcosm, is a quote unquote canary in the coal mine, if you will, for what will happen to greater America if they don't ship up and shape out.
Agree.
That is going to happen. And what's going to happen is, if you start seeing single parenthood rates start to rise to the where it is in predominantly inner cities, you're going to start to see the same problems in the greater American public that you're seeing in the black communities.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So this mentality of being able to work and do things, I think that one of the best things that a person can do is go back to the foundations of the labor market or the job market. Who's hiring? What skills do I need to know? Get a certificate. Do some kind of internship. Do like you had to do. Go like if you have to go there and you need to friggin' take the guy a cup of coffee every once in a while, but get your foot in the door. Build your resume. Stay out of jail. And don't get anybody pregnant.
Yeah, but here's my problem. As an employer, here's my problem. Let's say a kid from the inner city comes to me and convinces me, says, look, I don't want to get paid. If you give me a paycheck, I'm just going to burn it. I don't want it. I want to learn. I want to prove that I can do something. I want to break out. I will pay you to teach me, even if I have to, no matter how I have to get that money, but I will get it and I will pay you. What's the first thing I think in my mind? If this guy would report me to government, I go to jail. They'll close up my company. So you see how the government forces me not to hire someone who earnestly
can you do it like an intern? Can you do it like an internship? Or
but if it's an internship, then it has to be. For example, if you were in college and you were going to be a dental assistant, I'm making this up, or whatever, or maybe a dentist, and you in your last year for 6 months you interned in a dental hospital or something like that. Yeah, there are structured places that are government approved as internships. But I can say, oh no, I don't pay him because he's an intern. I go to jail. So the government says, go ahead, you hire him, you're toast. We're closing you down. I can't do that anymore. I would love to do that. I can't afford, because then if they shut me down, if they find me, I have to lay off my other employees. It had nothing to do with black, white, green, or blue. I'm out.
Economics.
See, I mean, people don't realize what we go through. And believe me, employers are not, of course there's prejudiced people out there and there's non-prejudiced, but employees, they just want peace. They just want someone to come in, do the job right, be part of the team, and make things work right. That's all. They're not, it's everything else is political garbage, let me tell you. I've been around too long to know that. Anyway, we are well out of time, but we have to have you back. You know that.
Yeah, man, I love to be back, Joe. We got to connect more. I'm going to send you some links and some things I want you to look at.
Okay.
So we can revisit the concept, because we're talking about the herbivore, the phenomenon, the demographic winner in Japan, and how the United States is heading down that path.
Okay, well.
So I think we should chit chat off the record, and like send back a few notes, maybe a few things, and maybe outline something, and then attack it.
Okay, Bobby Cenura, you want to just briefly give our audience just a briefing of who you are, if you want to give them an email, website address.
Everybody, listen, check out my new book. It's called Black Names Matter. The Black Names book, it talks about the ramifications of certain types of quote unquote ghetto names, and it also defines these names. So if you hear a name, you can look it up in the book. It's a great coffee table read. If you're in the can, it's a good book to have by your toilet when you're on your think tank. Look me up. I also write other articles. I also write other novels from the male point of view. If you just look my name up, Bobby, Bobby, C like cat, E like elephant, N like Nancy, O like orange, U like umbrella, R like rainbow, A, Cenoura, Cenoura, Bobby Cenura. Look me up on Amazon, and you'll see a couple of my books up there. And I'm gonna continue more. I'm actually working on some productions right now, and things like that. And I'm out there, and I have a somewhat conservative view, but I'm libertarian through and through. So just look me up, and that's all I got to say about that. And thank you again, Joe, for having me on. I appreciate it, and I can't wait till we get in the ring again and start jabbing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being on the show. You're terrific. Look forward to speaking to you again. Okay, folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, but let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, as my wife would say, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.